This is the notes for 5-5, okay? We're going to talk about radicals. But first, we're going to do a little bit of review on the notes, okay? So the first section, you're just reviewing. So you're multiplying these together, okay, to get your polynomial. So for the first one, you take x times x, which gives you x squared. Then you take x times 8, which gives you plus 8x, right? And then you take negative 4 times x, which gives you minus 4x. And then you take your negative 4 and multiply it by your 8, which gives you negative 32. So now you're going to get x squared plus 4x minus 32. So that's your answer. Okay? So now this next one, you would have 2x plus 1 squared, right? So 2x plus 1 times 2x plus 1. So your first number would be 4x squared, right? And then you would have plus 4x, right? And then plus 1. Okay? And if you need to write it out, you can, but try doing it mentally. And then so this last one, you would have x cubed, right? Then you would have minus x squared plus 2x. And you're going to have plus 4x squared minus 4x and plus 8. So now you're going to combine like terms, right? And you're going to have x cubed. You have negative x squared plus 4x squared is going to give you plus 3x squared. Plus 2x minus 4x is going to give you minus 2x. And then your 8 stays the same. So this is your answer right here. X squared plus x cubed plus 3x squared minus 2x plus 8. All right, so now we'll do a couple of these. So factoring, which we've been doing, right? So when you don't have a number or a coefficient in front of this variable, this squared variable, you can do this pretty easily. You just need to find your multiples of 24 that when you add or subtract, you get 11, right? So if you have 24 over here, you'll have 24 and 1, right? Things that multiply together that give you 24, okay? So you'll have 12 and 2. You'll have, what else is 24? 6 and 4. Oh wait, 8 and 3. 6 and 4. What else? That's it, 4, 6. Okay, so which ones, if you add or subtract any of these, do you get 11? Yes, this one, right? Okay. And 2 negatives, if you add both of these as negatives, it'll give you negative 11. But when you multiply them together, it gives you positive 24. So that works. So x, we're going to have minus 8 and x plus 3. Minus 3, sorry. Because they're both negative. Negative, negative. All right, so now let's look at this next one. Do these have anything in common? And you can automatically tell they have an x. They both have x. But they also have a 3, right? So 3x, and that leaves you with 4x plus 1. Okay, so 4x plus 1 cannot be simplified any more than that. So that's as far as you could factor. Okay, and that's just practice from the last two. Okay, so now let me do a couple of examples with the radicals. And so this is new. Simplify the following radical. Okay, so we have the square root of 56. And if you put the square root of 56 in your calculator, just to, where's my square root button on this thing? So second here, I'm going to say 56, enter. Look, you get a decimal, right? So there's nothing, it's not a square number. So you're going to get a decimal. So to simplify that, you need to think of multiples of 56 that you can reduce down, okay? So for example, 56, 7 times 8 equals 56, right? Okay, and 7's a prime number. So then what does 8 reduce down to? It reduces down to 4 and 2, and your 7 carries down. And then now your 4 reduces down to 2, 2. So you keep factoring it down until you can't reduce it anymore. Okay, till it's a prime number, until there's no multiples of that number other than itself and 1. Okay, so 7 and 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, right? There's nothing, we can't get that down in any lower form. So now, since it's squared, you're trying to pair them up in 2s. So these 2 pair up and you get a pair of 2s, but we don't have another 2 to pair with this one, and we don't have another 7 to pair with this one. So this is the only thing we can pull out. And this pair becomes one number on the outside. Since this is a square root, we need 2 of them to be able to bring it out. So this pair becomes 1, 2 on the outside, okay? And then what are you left with on the inside? 7 times 2 is 14. It's still underneath the square root sign because we couldn't pair them up. So they have to stay underneath the square root sign. So this, the square root of 56 simplified, is now 2 to the square root of 14. Okay, and it's because we paired up these 2's and they become 1 on the outside. And then whatever's left that we can't pair stays on the inside. Okay, so now let's look at number 9. So you're going to have the square root of 324. Okay, now if you want to simplify that, it's 2 times 162. Okay. And then now what are you going to have? This 2, what can we do? We can't do anything with the 2 but carry it down because it's already in its lowest form. 162, you can have 2 and 81, right? So carry those 2's down. And now your 81 can become 9 and 9, right? If it's a square number, you want to use those, right? Because we're trying to get them in pairs of 2. And 81 is a square number. So now you can pair your 9's and you can pair your 2's, right? We have 2 of each and we don't have anything left over. So on the outside, the 1, 2, so this pair becomes 1, and this 9 becomes 1, 9, okay? So now you just multiply those together and it becomes 18. So there was nothing left to put under the square root sign. Like over here, we had 2 that didn't have pairs, right? And so they remained underneath the square root sign. But over here, everything paired up. And so we don't have a square root sign anymore. All right. Well, let's see what we got. Next page. Okay, let's do one more of these. Which one do we want to do? How about, well, we can do this one that has a number in, well, let's do this one. Okay, so the square root of 98, right? So let's think about, what's, just 2 go into 98? Yes, 2 times 49. Okay, and 49 is a square number, so we should use that. 7 and 7, right? And then the 2 carries down. So now we've got to circle our pairs. 7 up, there's a pair of 7's, but there's nothing, there's not a 2, right? So the 7 comes out front and it becomes 7, but now you still have a square root and a 2 underneath it. So that's your answer. All right, so now let's look at this next section. Solve using the square root method, okay? So here, now you're given an equation that's equal to 0, and we're trying to solve the equation, okay? And you're going to use your square root simplifying to help you solve, okay? So now we're going to add our 49 to both sides because it cancels out over here, and you get x squared is equal to 49, okay? So now, to figure out what x is equal to, we need to take the square root of that. And since we do it to one side, we always do it to the other. That's the rule in solving an equation, right? So when you take the square root of an x squared, it becomes x. And now the square root of 49 is going to be plus or minus 7. Okay? The square root of 49 is 7. And it's always whenever you take the square root of a squared variable, your answer is always going to be a plus or a minus, right? Because here in an x squared scenario, you have 2 x's, right? So 2 negative 7's give you 49 and 2 positive 7's give you 49, okay? So when you're solving for an x squared, when you have a variable squared, your solution's always going to be a plus or a minus, okay? All right, so now let's look at the next one. So we're going to add your 27 over here. And you're going to get 3x squared equals 27. You're going to do the same thing you would normally do, divide by 3, and you're going to get x squared is equal to 9. Okay, but now we have the x squared, and to get it down to x, we have to take the square root of both sides, and you're going to get x is equal to plus or minus 3. Okay, because the square root of 9 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9, right? All right, so now let's look. Let's look at this one. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to add this over here when you're solving. X squared equals 48, okay? So they're going to take the square root of both sides, and you're going to end up with x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 48. And since it's not a square number, you can't easily do that. You're going to have to simplify here. So 4 and 8 go down to 6 times 8, right? And then you're going to have, this one's going to be 3 times 2, and this one's going to be 4 times 2. But now 4 still goes down further, right? So the 3 can come down and the 2 can come down, but the 4 becomes a 2 and a 2, and this 2 carries down. So now we have everything down to a prime number, right? Okay, so now let's pair them up. So we need 1 pair of 2s, 2 pairs of 2s, but there's no pair for the 3. So now our answer becomes x is equal to plus or minus, what are we going to have? 1, 2. So 2 times 2, right? Because this is, the pair counts as 1, 2, and this pair counts as another 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, and the square root of what you have left over that's not paired up, which is 3. So that's your answer. Plus or minus 4 times the square root of 3. All right, let's look at this last one. So what do we need to do here? We're going to add our 60. And you're going to get 10x squared equals 80. Divide both sides by 10. X squared is equal to 70. Take the square root of both sides, and you're going to get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 70, which is not an equal, which is not a, oh, sorry, this was 80 divided by 10. So this should be 8, and this should be 8. I wish I had my pencil, but I don't with me right now. So I did minus in my head when I was actually dividing. So the square root of 8. Okay, so now rewrite it. Square root of 8 here, plus or minus the square root of 8. So what do we do when we get these down? So it's 4 and 2, and then you're going to have 2 and 2. And your 2 carries down. So now we can pair up 1, right? 1, 2 comes out, but 1 stays under. So you're going to get x is equal to plus or minus 1, 2 on the outside, and the square root of 2 on the inside. So that's your answer. Okay? All right, that's all the examples. Simple enough.